I used to think silence was peace. These days, it just means no one's calling. Saturday morning sunlight slid through the blinds of my one-bedroom apartment in Maple Ridge, the kind of quiet Ohio suburb where lawns are clipped short and gossip spreads faster than spring dandelions. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, the mug chipped on one side like me, scrolling through a few old messages from my daughter, Emily. Nothing new. She usually texted mid-morning. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Jack Bennett speaking. A pause. Then that cold, polished voice. Jack, it's Trevor. But in the given and, my son-in-law never called unless something was wrong or something was expected. Everything all right? I asked, though I already knew the answer would come wrapped in passive aggression. My mother insisted. I remind you about her birthday dinner tonight. 7 o'clock. Ridgecrest Country Club. Business casual. I could almost see his smirk through the phone. She insisted, he said. Like it was a legal obligation he was barely fulfilling. I appreciate the reminder, I said carefully. Good. And, Jack, please be on time. They don't hold reservations. Click. That was it. No, how are you? No, Emily's excited to see you. Just another line item in the Hale family's social calendar. I looked around my kitchen, mismatched plates, an old fridge humming like it was on life support, and my late wife's framed recipe still taped to the cabinet. Martha had been gone 4 years, and yet her handwriting still filled the room. She'd always said, "You can't fix what people refuse to see, Jack." Maybe she was right. Still, I couldn't let Emily stand alone among those people. The Hales had money, serious money. A family law firm, old money tone, new money arrogance. They'd treated me like I was some charity case who'd shown up uninvited to their perfect family portrait. But Emily had asked me to come. That meant something. I rinsed the mug and opened my closet. The business casual options weren't exactly inspiring. 2 pressed shirts and a pair of slacks that fit better 10 pounds ago. I chose the navy one. Conservative enough to blend in, dark enough to hide the wear. Still, I needed a gift. Something thoughtful, not expensive. I wasn't about to buy Vivian Hale another designer candle she'd toss in the guest bathroom. I glanced toward the corner of the room, where my old workshop bench stood under the window. A small piece of cedar wood rested on top, clean, polished, untouched. I ran my thumb along the grain. It smelled faintly of smoke and memory. Martha and I used to build frames together for family photos. Maybe that's what I'd do. A handmade frame. Cedar. Simple. Honest. I could already hear Vivian's voice. Oh, how rustic. The word she used when she meant cheap. But it didn't matter. It wasn't about her. It was about showing up for my daughter with something that meant something. I spent the next 2 hours shaping the edges, sanding down the corners, and sealing it with clear coat. When it was done, it gleamed faintly under the kitchen light. A small act of dignity in a world obsessed with price tags. As I cleaned the table, my phone buzzed again. A message from Emily. Emily. Dad, I know Mom's gone, but it'd mean a lot if you came tonight. Please try to get along with them. Me. I'll be there. Don't worry. Love you. Emily. Love you too. Just, don't rise to Mom's bait, okay? I stared at the typo Mom's bait. She meant Vivian's. Maybe that slip said everything. I sighed. Boundaries. My therapist used to call it. You can't fix toxic people, Jack. You can only stop enabling them. But it's hard to draw boundaries when it's your only kid on the other side. I wrapped the frame in brown paper, slid it into a simple gift bag, and tucked my bank card into my wallet. I checked my balance out of habit. $1,142.37. Tight, but enough for gas. Maybe a decent bottle of wine to bring along. The Hales loved their labels. Maybe I could at least buy something that wouldn't embarrass Emily. On the counter sat a stack of mail. Insurance statements, an unopened letter from my attorney about the will update, and a flyer for senior financial fraud awareness. Irony writes itself. I tucked the letter into my jacket pocket. Something told me I'd need every piece of written evidence to protect what was mine if things ever went sideways. Before locking up, I took one last look at the frame. The cedar caught the light like it was alive. Maybe tonight wouldn't be about surviving their judgment. Maybe it would be about proving that decency still counted for something. I grabbed my keys, the ones with the blue shop rag looped through the ring, a habit from 40 years in the garage. Old habits die slow, but they keep you honest. The sun had started to dip by the time I stepped outside. The neighborhood looked like a postcard, white fences, trimmed hedges, not a sound out of place. Perfect, too perfect. I locked the door behind me and muttered under my breath, "All right, Ridgecrest, let's see what your kind of standards really look like." Then I started the engine and drove toward a night that would change everything. The highway out of Maple Ridge always feels longer when you're headed somewhere you don't want to be. The afternoon sun was sharp and low, the kind that makes the dashboard glow like a warning light. I kept checking the time plenty early, I told myself, but that didn't stop the knot forming in my stomach. Halfway down Route 33, traffic slowed to a crawl. Up ahead, I saw a silver Audi pulled onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. A woman stood beside it, about 60, maybe a little older, her posture too proud to look stranded. Most cars swerved around her without a second glance. Old habits kicked in before logic did. I pulled over behind her. She watched me approach like she was deciding whether to trust me. I raised my hand slightly. "Car trouble?" Her voice was calm, composed, the kind that said she'd spent a lifetime being in control. It just died. Everything went dark at once. I nodded, popping the hood. "Name's Jack. Used to be a mechanic, long time ago. Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated a second, then said, "Please." "I'd appreciate it." The engine bay told the story right away. Snapped belt, coolant, splatter. The works. "Looks like your serpentine belt gave up. I can get you running again, but it'll be temporary. You'll need a proper replacement soon." She blinked, processing the words. "You're serious? You can fix it here?" "I can try," I said, smiling. "Can't promise it'll win any beauty contests." She let out a quiet laugh, the kind that softens a person's edges. "I'll take functionality over beauty today." No one in the time. Her name was Eleanor Pierce. She'd been driving from Columbus to Dublin for, as she put it, a family event that feels more like a business transaction. I knew the tone, that weary, polite exhaustion of someone walking into a room full of sharks. "Same here," I told her. "Though in my case, I'm the uninvited bait." She looked at me for a long second, like she understood more than I said. "Toxic families are their own ecosystem, aren't they? Predators and enablers," I said. "And the ones who think keeping quiet makes them saints." She nodded slowly. "My late husband used to say the same thing." "Sorry for your loss," I said quietly, tightening a bolt. 5 years, she said. "You? Has why cans? 4. Cancer." She was the only one who could keep me from saying the wrong thing at dinner parties. We both smiled, the sad kind of smile people share when they know that pain has its own language. The fix took about an hour. I used an old belt from my emergency kit, some duct tape, and a lot of prayer. While I worked, Eleanor leaned against the guardrail, telling me bits and pieces about her life. She was a retired CFO turned investor, the kind of person who'd built herself from nothing, which instantly earned my respect. "You must miss working on cars," she said. "I do," I admitted. "Machines make sense. If something's broken, there's a reason. People, not so much." Eleanor chuckled. "You sound like my therapist. Guess we both charge by the hour." By the time I finished, the sun had started to dip. I told her to start the engine. It fired up on the first try, purring like nothing had ever gone wrong. She clapped her hands together. "That's incredible. How much do I owe you?" "Nothing," I said, closing my toolbox. Her brow furrowed. "Come on, Jack. You spent your whole afternoon out here. Some things aren't about money. Besides, someone helped me once when I was stranded. Feels right to pay it forward." Eleanor hesitated, clearly unused to hearing no. Finally, she pulled out her phone. "Then at least give me your number, in case I can return the favor someday." "There's no found," I laughed. "You sure about that? I'm not exactly part of your usual roadside assistance plan." "I'm sure," she said. "You strike me as the kind of person who deserves to be in my contacts list." So I gave it to her. She called immediately, and my old phone buzzed with her name. "Eleanor Pierce. You've officially joined the ranks of good people." "Me? That's an endangered species these days." She smiled and climbed into her car. Before pulling away, she leaned out the window. "Jack, I hope your evening goes better than mine." "Doubt it," I said. "But thanks." She laughed again and drove off, the Audi blending into the stream of weekend traffic. For a minute, I stood there, the sound of the engine fading into the wind. Helping her shouldn't have felt important, but somehow it did. Maybe because it reminded me that I still knew how to fix things even if those things weren't people. I got back in my car, wiped my hands on the blue shop rag looped through my keychain, and checked the time. I was already running late. Figures, but as I merged back onto the highway, I caught myself smiling. For once, being late felt like the right kind of mistake. Sometimes doing the decent thing costs you time, but it buys you something better, proof that you still know who you are. By the time I reached Ridgecrest Country Club, the sky had already started bleeding into dusk. I parked my old Toyota between two glossy SUVs, both so clean they probably had their own housekeepers. The digital clock on my dash blinked 7:48. Late, not fashionably, unforgivably. The steering wheel was slick under my hands. I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Grease stains on my cuffs, dirt under my nails, a smudge on my cheek that I hadn't noticed in the fading light. Helping Eleanor had felt good, but now, standing in the golden glow of Ridgecrest's marble entryway, it felt like a mistake I was about to pay for. I took a deep breath, grabbed the small brown gift bag holding the cedar frame, and headed inside. The lobby smelled like old money perfume, polished wood, and self-importance. A hostess glanced at my clothes, her smile freezing halfway like she wasn't sure whether to greet me or call security. Before she could decide, I heard the voice that always managed to chill a room. Jack. Vivian Hale stood at the top of the stairs, dressed in something glittering and silver, like she was auditioning for the role of elegant matriarch in a film no one wanted to watch. I forced a polite smile. Vivian, happy birthday. Thanks so. Her gaze flicked over me, shirt rumpled, pants dusty from kneeling on the highway shoulder. The corner of her mouth twitched like she'd bitten into something sour. You're late, she said. 2 hours. There was an accident on the road. I stopped to help someone whose car broke down. How noble, she replied, the words sharp as glass. Unfortunately, we already finished dinner. I'm not here for the food. No, she said, eyes narrowing. You're here because Emily begged us to invite you. Do try not to make her regret it. She took the gift bag from my hand with 2 fingers, as if it might stain her jewelry. What is this? Just a little something I made. Her lips tightened. Homemade. Of course. She set the bag down beside a mountain of wrapped designer boxes, as if placing a pebble among diamonds. Vivian, I'm not here to impress anyone. No, Jack, I don't imagine you could. The words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I thought about walking right out the door, but then I saw Emily across the room standing near the dining table, smiling nervously, like someone hoping 2 storms might just pass each other without colliding. Dad, she said, rushing over to hug me. She didn't even flinch at the grease on my sleeve. I was worried. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said. Just help someone out on the road. Didn't think I'd be this late. Have to grade a doing red. Behind her, Trevor approached with that tight-lipped grin he used when he was pretending to be cordial. You made it, he said. Better late than never. Or not at all, Vivian added. Trevor laughed like she'd told a charming joke, and I felt the heat rising in my chest. Charles Hale appeared next, his expression already bored. We were just about to have dessert, he said. I assume you'll… Stand? Stand, I repeated. He gestured toward the long table, every seat filled with guests in crisp clothes and polite smiles. You didn't exactly dress for the occasion. Emily's voice trembled. Dad, please, Vivian cut her off. If you can't dress like a human being, Jack, then don't sit at the table with human beings. The room went silent. I could hear the faint clinking of silverware, the rustle of someone's dress shifting uncomfortably. Even the waiter froze mid-step. Emily's face went pale. Mom, stop. Vivian gave a thin smile. I'm merely stating the obvious. Something inside me cracked. 4 years of biting my tongue, of letting their gaslighting and condescension slide for Emily's sake, it all burned away in an instant. You know what? I said, keeping my voice steady. You're right. Vivian blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. Excuse me? You're right, I repeated. Some people don't understand appropriate boundaries, like the kind where you treat family with basic respect. Trevor stiffened. Jack. No, let me finish, I said. I've spent years trying to prove myself to people who wouldn't notice integrity if it walked in wearing a Rolex. You think money buys character? Try earning it. Charles set down his wine glass with a heavy thud. That's enough. It is, I said. Enough pretending. Enough apologizing for not fitting into your little world. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Dad, please don't. I touched her shoulder gently. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. You married into a family that mistakes arrogance for class. That's on them, not you. I turned toward Vivian, who looked like she'd just been told the stock market had crashed. You enjoy your birthday. I'm going home. Jack, wait. Emily's voice broke, but I couldn't stay. As I walked toward the door, I heard a few whispers ripple through the room, the kind that follow any scandal worth savoring. My shoes left faint dust prints on the marble floor. Fitting, I thought. I finally left a mark in their perfect house. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. I leaned against the car and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long while, I felt something like relief. Sometimes, standing up for yourself doesn't look like a victory. It just looks like walking away head high, dignity intact. I didn't know it yet, but that moment, that line I finally drew was about to change everything. When I drove away from Ridgecrest that night, I didn't turn on the radio. I just let the silence hang heavy, the kind that presses against your ribs until you finally exhale. The glow of the country club faded in my rearview mirror, and for the first time in years, I didn't care if they were whispering about me. All those nights I'd kept my mouth shut for Emily's sake, sitting through their digs, their smug smiles, their performative politeness. I told myself I was keeping the peace, that it wasn't worth fighting over, but maybe what I was really doing was enabling them. That word enabler hit harder than I expected. I'd heard it before, from my therapist, from an old friend who'd watched me bend over backwards for people who'd never lift a finger for me. Jack, she'd said, you think being kind makes you the better man, but sometimes, being kind just makes you the target. She was right. I wasn't protecting anyone. I was giving the Hales permission to disrespect me. Halfway home, I pulled over at a gas station just to breathe. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, painting everything in that sickly blue tone that makes even clean things look dirty. I stared at my reflection in the window, sleeves rolled up, shirt still stained from Eleanor's car. I looked tired, but not broken. Not this time. My phone buzzed with a message. It was Emily. Emily, Dad, I'm so sorry for what happened. I should have stopped them. Me. Emily, I hate that they treat you like this. Me. Then stop apologizing for them. You don't owe them your silence. She didn't reply right away. Maybe she was crying. Maybe she was realizing something I'd taken too long to see, that toxic people don't change because you forgive them. They change when you stop letting them win. I finished my coffee and sat there in the parked car, feeling something unfamiliar creeping in. Not anger, not really. It was clarity. I'd spent years being the nice guy, the bridge builder, the one who tried to smooth things over. But tonight, when I walked out of that marble palace and left their cruelty echoing behind me, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt free. That's the thing about boundaries. They don't keep people out, they keep you safe. As I merged back onto the highway, I realized I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their version of standards. I just needed to stop feeling guilty for not fitting into their world. The truth is, decency doesn't need validation. It just needs a backbone. And for the first time in a long time, I had mine back. The next morning, I woke up thinking maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe walking out like that had just made things worse for Emily. But the thought didn't last long. By the time I poured my coffee, the weight of what had happened hit me again, the tone in Vivian's voice, the way Trevor stood there pretending it wasn't his problem, the way Charles said, "Stand," like he was talking to a dog. No, I hadn't overreacted. I'd finally reacted. I told myself I was done with them. I'd shown up, taken my beating, drawn my line. End of story. But the universe has a sense of humor. That evening, around 6, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I'd had enough family drama for a lifetime, but something made me pick up. Jack? It's Eleanor. I smiled before I could stop myself. Eleanor Pierce, the Audi survivor. How's the car? Running perfectly, she said. Thanks to you. And I owe you more than a thank you, by the way. Are you free tonight? Depends, I said. Is this a date or another breakdown? She laughed softly. Neither. I just realized we're both heading to the same place. Ridgecrest Country Club. I froze. You're kidding. Not at all. I have a business dinner there tonight. I thought it might be nice to see a familiar face. Cantu is not time. The irony was so sharp I almost laughed. Well, if you run into a woman named Vivian Hale, tell her her mechanic says hello. There was a long pause. Vivian Hale? She repeated, her tone shifting just slightly. Interesting. I'll see you soon, Jack. I hung up, staring at the phone like it had just told me a ghost story. An hour later, I got a message from Emily. Emily. Dad, you won't believe this. Mom's freaking out. Some investor she's been trying to impress just showed up early. Me, investor? Emily. Yeah, some retired executive named Eleanor Pierce. She's huge in the finance world. My heart stopped for a beat. Me, you're kidding. Emily. Nope, why? Me. Because I fixed her car yesterday. Silence, then. Emily. Dad, please tell me you're joking. Me. Nope. Guess we'll see how your mother handles business casual tonight. When I pulled into the club's parking lot again, the valet recognized me. His eyes flicked from my car to my face, like he couldn't believe I'd had the nerve to come back. I didn't care. Something told me I wasn't just showing up this time, I was walking into the punchline of a story that had started on the side of the highway. I stayed near the entrance, not close enough to make a scene, but close enough to see inside. Through the glass doors, I saw the same marble floors, the same perfect lighting, but now the energy was different. The noise had shifted from smug laughter to brittle silence. And then I saw her. Eleanor Pierce. Same silver hair, same effortless posture. She walked in with the calm confidence of someone used to being the most important person in any room. The room practically bowed to her presence. Vivian was the first to greet her, smiling so hard her face might have cracked. Mrs. Pierce, what an honor to have you here, she said, voice dripping with false warmth. Eleanor scanned the room, and when her eyes found me through the doorway, she broke into a genuine smile, the kind that glows, not performs. Jack, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. What a wonderful surprise. Hasn't date to gettin'. The effect was instant. The entire Hale family froze. Charles's expression went rigid. Trevor's glass stopped halfway to his lips. Vivian's color drained like someone had pulled her plug from the wall. You two know each other? Vivian stammered. Eleanor stepped closer to me, her heels clicking against the marble like punctuation marks. Of course we do, she said. This man spent hours helping me when my car broke down yesterday. Refused to take a dime for it. I wouldn't even be here tonight if it weren't for him. The silence that followed was perfect. No background chatter, no fake laughter, just the sound of every ounce of Hale arrogance collapsing at once. Vivian's lips twitched, searching for a polite recovery. Well, isn't that something? Eleanor's smile didn't waver. It's rare to meet someone with genuine integrity these days, she said. Especially around here. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Watching their faces twist between horror and forced civility was better than any speech I could have given. Eleanor turned to me. Jack, would you do me the honor of joining us for dinner? I smiled. Only if they don't mind me sitting at the human table this time. Vivian flinched like I'd slapped her. Eleanor, though she laughed. A real laugh. The kind that told everyone exactly who held the power now. That was the thing about karma. It didn't need my help. It just needed a little time and maybe one broken down Audi to find its way home. Dinner that night was the kind of scene you only see in movies. The ones where the villains suddenly realize the hero has been holding the ace all along. Eleanor sat beside me at the long mahogany table, calm and composed, while the Hales tried to pretend they weren't falling apart inside their designer clothes. Vivian's hands trembled slightly as she refilled her wine. Charles kept smiling, that tight, strained smile people wear when they're losing money by the minute. Trevor, poor Trevor, looked like he wished the floor would open up and swallow him whole. Eleanor chatted easily, asking polite questions about their family business. Vivian launched into her usual monologue about standards and heritage code words for wealth. But her voice wobbled every time Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. So, tell me, Eleanor said, cutting her steak with surgical precision. How do you all know Jack? Vivian hesitated. Oh, well, Jack's our family connection. Connection, Eleanor repeated, smiling slightly. That's one way to put it. Trevor tried to jump in. He's Emily's father, great guy, helps with cars. Vivian interrupted sharply, then realized how bad that sounded. I mean, he's good with his hands. To sting that at doing the bran, clearly, Eleanor said, her tone soft but sharp enough to slice glass. He fixed my Audi yesterday. Didn't even hesitate. You're very lucky to have someone like him in your family. Silence. No one dared to disagree. Charles cleared his throat. We pride ourselves on knowing good people, he said stiffly. Eleanor dabbed her mouth with her napkin. Do you? She looked around the table, her eyes glinting. Because from where I'm sitting, I see a man who offered kindness without expecting anything in return, and a family who can't even offer him a seat. You could have heard a pin drop. Vivian's cheeks flushed crimson. Mrs. Pierce, I think you're misunderstanding. Oh, I understand perfectly, Eleanor said. You invited me here tonight to discuss an investment opportunity, didn't you? Charles blinked, realizing too late that she wasn't bluffing. You're considering our proposal for the Ridgecrest development project. Eleanor nodded slowly. I was. Until I saw how you treat people who can't give you something in return. She turned to me, smiling with quiet warmth. Jack reminded me yesterday that integrity isn't a performance. It's what you do when no one's watching. Vivian opened her mouth, but no words came out. Character, Eleanor continued, is the real currency in business, and it's the one thing money can't buy. The whole room froze. Even the waiters were pretending not to breathe. Then Eleanor folded her napkin neatly and set it beside her plate. I've made my decision. I won't be investing in the Hale proposal. Then, Charles went pale. Mrs. Pierce, please, if you'd just reconsider. I have reconsidered, she said, her voice cool but final. I invest in people. And people who humiliate others for sport don't build legacies, they build cautionary tales. Trevor looked down, shame flickering across his face. Vivian stared at her untouched plate, jaw tight. The picture of a woman realizing she'd just lost everything that made her feel powerful. Emily, sitting across the table, finally looked up at me, really looked at me and mouthed, "Thank you." I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. As the dinner collapsed into stunned silence, Eleanor leaned closer and whispered, "Poetic justice, wouldn't you say?" "Perfect timing," I murmured back. Afterward, when the guests had fled, and the Hales were left picking up the pieces of their pride, Eleanor and I stepped outside into the cool night air. "I didn't plan that," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's what made it so satisfying." We stood there for a moment, the crickets loud in the quiet, the sky stretching wide and black above the country club's perfect lawn. Eleanor turned to me, eyes soft but steady. "You know, Jack, in another life, I probably would have hired you. Guess it's not too late," I said. She smiled. "Maybe not." As she drove away, I caught a glimpse of her taillights fading down the long driveway, two red dots shrinking into the dark. I didn't need to follow. Justice had already arrived, dressed in silver and grace, and she'd left no doubt about where decency truly belonged. The next morning, the story had already started spreading through town. Ridgecrest wasn't exactly New York news traveled fast here, especially when it involved the Hales. By 10 a.m., I'd already gotten 3 texts from old acquaintances asking, "Did you really stand up to them in front of everyone?" I didn't answer any of them. I didn't need to. What I did do was sit on my porch with a cup of black coffee, the good kind, the one you make slow, the way people used to before they forgot what quiet tasted like. The air smelled like rain and cut grass. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing myself for someone else's judgment. Emily called around noon. Her voice cracked before she even said hello. "Dad, I can't believe what happened last night," she said. "Eleanor just destroyed them." I smiled to myself. She didn't destroy anyone, Em. She just showed them who they really are. "They're panicking," she said. "Trevor's dad had a call scheduled with her firm this morning, but she canceled everything. Mom's in denial. She keeps saying it was a misunderstanding." "Yeah," I said, taking another sip. "The kind where you mistake cruelty for class." Emily sighed. "You were right, Dad. I've been letting them walk all over you and me. I thought keeping quiet would keep the peace, but it just made me complicit." That hit hard. I knew that feeling too well. "You learned the same lesson I did," I said softly. "Kindness doesn't mean letting people treat you like furniture. It means knowing when to stand up." Cared Elsie Bill denied it. She hesitated before asking, "Are you okay?" "Better than okay," I said. "I think I finally closed a chapter that's been open too long." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "I'm proud of you." That one sentence was worth more than any apology the Hales could ever offer. After we hung up, I sat there for a while, watching the wind move through the trees. My phone buzzed again this time, an unknown number. Eleanor Pierce. I'm meeting a friend for lunch in town. Care to join? I chuckled. The woman didn't waste time. Me. Only if you promise not to fire anyone mid-meal. Eleanor. No promises. Pick you up in 20. Lunch was at a small place off Main Street, checkered tablecloths, creaky floorboards, and the smell of pie baking in the back. The kind of restaurant that didn't need to impress anyone. Eleanor fit right in, which was funny considering she could probably buy the whole block if she wanted. She waved when she saw me. You look more relaxed today, she said. I slept like someone who doesn't owe anyone an explanation, I replied. Eleanor smiled. Good, you earned that. For a while, we just talked about everything but the Hales. She told me about her late husband, about how she'd built her company from the ground up, about the loneliness that came with people only respecting your money. When she finished her coffee, she looked at me with that quiet sharpness again. You know why I handled things the way I did last night? I shrugged. Because you hate hypocrites? She laughed. Partly. But mostly because I've seen what that kind of entitlement does to people. My mother spent her whole life trying to earn love from people who thought money made them better. I swore I'd never let anyone like that dictate my worth again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was something raw in the air, something honest. I get that, I said finally. My wife used to tell me the same thing. She said the moment you stop defending your dignity, someone else will decide what it's worth. She that has won the card. Eleanor smiled faintly. Your wife was a wise woman. She was, I said quietly. She'd have liked you. We finished our meal in easy conversation. Two people who'd both survived the kind of loneliness that comes from being decent. In a world that rewards arrogance. When we stepped outside, the afternoon sun was bright but soft. Eleanor adjusted her sunglasses and turned to me. Jack, I'm planning to start a new foundation, one that helps small-town businesses run by people with actual integrity. I want you involved. I laughed. You're kidding. Do I look like I'm joking? I stared at her, half in disbelief, half in gratitude. You really trust me with something like that? She smiled. You fixed my car with duct tape and a prayer. You've already proven you can make miracles out of limited resources. That line made me laugh harder than I had in months. Sometimes life doesn't hand you revenge. It hands you redemption, and it's even sweeter. As Eleanor drove away, I stood there in the parking lot, sunlight catching the edges of her silver car. I thought about Vivian and her marble dining room, about how quickly power crumbles when it's built on ego instead of empathy. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace with where I was. Grease stains, old Toyota, and all. Because some people chase wealth, others build character. But the lucky ones, they learn the difference in time to enjoy it. A few weeks passed, and life settled into something quieter, something better. I didn't realize how much space the Hales had been taking up in my head until they were gone. Silence felt different now. Not heavy, not lonely, just clean. Emily stopped by every weekend. Sometimes we'd just sit on the porch, no big conversations. Just the sound of wind chimes and the occasional bark of the neighbor's dog. She was healing in her own way too. She'd started therapy, finally putting words to the years of gaslighting she'd endured from Trevor's parents. She even mentioned moving out, getting her own place. When she said it, her voice didn't shake. That's how I knew she was serious. One evening, while we were sorting through some old boxes in the garage, she found an envelope tucked inside a dusty toolbox. It was Martha's handwriting. Inside was a note I'd forgotten existed. Jack, don't let the world make you small. The people who mistake your kindness for weakness will never understand your strength. Emily read it aloud, her voice trembling. Mom always knew, didn't she? Yeah, I said quietly. She did. That night, after Emily left, I sat on the porch with the letter in my hands. It hit me this was what reclaiming power really looked like. Not revenge, not shouting people down. It was remembering who you were before they made you doubt it. The next morning, I met Eleanor at her office downtown. She'd followed through on her idea. The new foundation was official. The name on the frosted glass door read, The Whitfield Pierce Foundation for Integrity in Business. She greeted me with that same steady smile. You ready to do some good work? I thought that's what we've been doing, I said. This time, she replied. We'll get paid for it. We both laughed. She handed me a folder, business plans, partner lists, grant proposals. At the bottom of the stack was a name I recognized. Hale Development Group. I looked up, surprised. They applied for funding last week, Eleanor said, sipping her coffee like it was no big deal. You're kidding. I'm not. It seems desperation breeds amnesia. What are you going to do? I asked. She smiled, that slow, knowing smile that said everything. I'm going to do what you did, Jack. Help the people who actually deserve it. I couldn't help but grin. Guess poetic justice runs on a schedule after all. That afternoon, we drove out to a small mechanic shop on the edge of town, a one-man operation run by a veteran named Ray. His roof leaked, his tools were outdated, but his honesty was gold. We decided he'd be the foundation's first investment. When I handed him the grant papers, he looked like he might cry. Nobody's ever believed in me like this, he said. I smiled. Guess it's about time someone did. That moment felt like closure, the kind that doesn't come from watching someone else fall, but from helping someone rise. Later that evening, Eleanor and I grabbed dinner at Miller's Steakhouse, our unofficial headquarters. The waitress knew our order by heart now. We sat in the same booth, same red vinyl seats. But the conversation was different. Lighter. You know, she said. I think Martha would have been proud of you. That caught me off guard. What makes you say that? Because you didn't let them turn you bitter, she said. You turned pain into purpose. I looked at her, the woman who'd gone from stranger on a highway to something far more important. Guess we both did, I said. When we stepped outside, the sky was streaked with orange and pink, the kind of sunset that made even old parking lots look holy. Eleanor turned toward me, her silver hair catching the light. So what now? She asked. Now, I said. We build something that lasts, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the man who'd been humiliated at a fancy dinner table. I felt like someone who'd finally reclaimed his story not through anger, but through grace. I thought about Vivian and her marble floors, about Charles and his reputation, about Trevor and his cowardly silence. Maybe they'd change. Maybe they wouldn't. It didn't matter anymore, because life has a way of giving you back what you put into it, just not always how you expect. Sometimes, kindness circles the block. Sometimes, justice drives a Mercedes. And sometimes, redemption just looks like two people starting over, one repaired alternator at a time. It's funny how life reshapes itself when you finally stop trying to please the wrong people. A month after everything happened, I realized my days looked completely different. No more walking on eggshells. No more checking my phone for messages that only brought guilt. Just peace, the kind that doesn't make noise but fills every corner of your life once it arrives. The foundation was growing faster than either Eleanor or I expected. Word had spread through small towns across Ohio, honest business owners, single mothers, mechanics, and teachers reaching out for help to rebuild their dreams. And somehow, I'd become the person people called when they needed a second chance. Me. The same guy who used to think his kindness was a weakness. One morning, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name written in an expensive pen. Inside was a single page. Jack, we've had time to reflect on what happened. Perhaps things got out of hand that evening. We hope you can understand the pressure we were under. We wish you well. Vivian and Charles Hale. I laughed. Not out of cruelty, but because it was so predictable. The apology wasn't for me, it was for their conscience. The last attempt to scrub their image clean. Still, I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my desk drawer. Let them have their version of closure. I already had mine. That same week, Emily invited me to see her new apartment, a small, sunlit place downtown with plants on the windowsill and a fridge covered in sticky notes that said things like, "Remember to eat breakfast and don't call Mom when stressed." I couldn't stop smiling. "You like it?" she asked. "I love it," I said. "It feels like freedom." She laughed softly. "I got that from you." I wanted to tell her how proud I was, not just of her independence, but of the strength it took to unlearn years of emotional manipulation. Instead, I just hugged her. Sometimes words aren't big enough for what you feel. Later that night, back home, I sat at my workbench, repairing an old carburetor, hands steady, mind quiet. My phone buzzed a text from Eleanor. "Eleanor, you free this weekend? I've got something to show you." Me, depends. Is it another broken car or another life-changing idea? Eleanor, maybe both. Dress casual. Saturday came, and she drove us to a small building near downtown, an old warehouse converted into something beautiful. The sign above the door read, "The Workshop." Inside, sunlight poured through high windows, landing on rows of restored engines, handmade furniture, and shelves of tools. "It's a community space," she said, "for people who want to build literally and metaphorically. Mechanics, artists, small business owners. It's what the foundation's funding will support next." I looked around, overwhelmed. "You did this?" "We did this," she corrected. "You inspired it." I didn't know what to say. For the first time, the noise in my head, all those doubts, regrets, and second-guessing, went silent. Eleanor smiled, handing me a small plaque she'd had made. It read, "In honor of those who fix what's broken, not for recognition, but because it's right." "Seems fitting," she said. I swallowed hard. "You sure this belongs to me?" She nodded. "Jack, people like you remind the rest of us what integrity looks like in motion. Don't downplay that." We stood there for a moment, surrounded by the faint hum of saws and the smell of machine oil and wood. It felt like a full circle from fixing one car on a lonely highway to helping others rebuild entire lives. Before we left, Eleanor turned to me. "You ever think about what started all this?" I smiled. "Yeah, one broken-down Audi and one arrogant family." She laughed. "And one man who decided enough was enough." On the drive home, the sun dipped low over the fields, and I found myself thinking about Martha. About how she always believed character was destiny. She used to say, "When the world tries to break you, fix something smaller, it reminds you that not everything is lost." She was right. Maybe that's what life had been trying to teach me all along, that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you learn to close, so better things can finally walk through. So here I am, a man who once felt out of place in marble rooms, now building something real with calloused hands and a clear conscience. And if there's a moral to this whole messy, beautiful story, it's this. You can't control who disrespects you, but you can control who gets to try again. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't justice, it's peace. It's strange how the end of one story can quietly become the start of another. A few months after everything, the Hales, the foundation, the long drive that changed everything, my life finally felt like it fit again. Not perfect, not dramatic, just right. The workshop had turned into something bigger than either of us imagined. Every week, I met people who reminded me of who I used to be. Folks who'd been overlooked, talked down to, made to feel small. Veterans rebuilding motorcycles. Single moms learning to fix appliances instead of replacing them. Retired teachers making furniture for local schools. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it gave them and me something the Hales never could. Dignity. Eleanor came by most days, clipboard in one hand, coffee in the other. She'd tease me about my stubborn loyalty to my old Toyota, which was still running perfectly thanks to a new alternator, the same one that started this whole mess. "You realize that car's practically a historical monument now," she said one morning. "Yeah," I replied, tightening a bolt, thinking of putting it in a museum. Exhibit A. The machine that proved karma's real. She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." That afternoon, a local journalist stopped by to write a feature on the foundation. She asked how it all began, how a small-town mechanic ended up co-founding a non-profit with a retired finance mogul. Eleanor started to answer, but I interrupted her. "It began with a simple mistake," I said. "Being late to a dinner that didn't matter, because I stopped to help someone who did." The reporter smiled. "So you're saying doing the right thing pays off?" "Not always," I said. "But when it does, it's worth every second." That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the workshop. Lights dimmed, the smell of oil and sawdust hanging in the air. On my workbench sat a framed photo, Emily, smiling in front of her apartment, her arm around Eleanor, the two most important women in my life. Right beside it, the small silver picture frame I'd once bought for Vivian Hale's birthday, the one that had started as an apology and ended as a reminder of everything I'd survived. Funny how something meant to impress the wrong people ended up symbolizing everything that truly mattered. I thought about sending it back to them, maybe with a note. Return to sender. I finally found where it belongs. But I didn't. Some stories don't need another chapter, they just need closure. A few days later, Eleanor and I drove out to the countryside to visit one of our new grant recipients, a young couple restoring an old barn into a community art studio. As we stood in the doorway, watching sunlight spill across fresh wooden floors, she said, "You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that day?" I looked out over the fields, wind bending the tall grass like an ocean. All the time, and every time, I realize it doesn't matter. What matters is that I did. Eleanor smiled. You've changed, you know. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just stopped apologizing for who I've always been. Say the plain ass. As we drove back toward town, she reached over and turned on the radio, an old soul station playing Otis Redding. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. There was something peaceful about the road between us, two people who'd seen the worst in others but somehow managed to keep the best in themselves. When we pulled into the city, the evening light painted everything. Gold cars, storefronts, even the cracked sidewalks. The world looked softer somehow. Or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. Later that night, after Eleanor dropped me off, I stood on my porch for a long time, staring up at the stars. I thought about Martha again, about how she used to say, "Kindness is the long game, Jack. It doesn't always win fast, but it wins fair." She was right. In the end, the story wasn't about revenge or humiliation or even justice. It was about reclaiming something more powerful: peace of mind. That's what I'd been chasing all along without realizing it. Not their approval, not their apology, just the quiet certainty that I'd done the right thing. The truth is, life doesn't hand you closure, you build it yourself. Sometimes it looks like a rebuilt engine. Sometimes it looks like a woman with silver hair and a sharp tongue who reminds you to keep your head up. And sometimes, it's just the sound of your own heartbeat in a place that finally feels like home. So if you ever find yourself standing in front of people who make you feel small, remember this: your worth isn't up for debate. Walk away if you have to. Speak up if you can. But never, ever, let them rewrite who you are. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living well enough that they don't even matter anymore. If there's one thing this whole ordeal taught me, it's that peace of mind is worth more than approval, especially from people who never really respected you in the first place. I used to think being the bigger person meant staying quiet, forgiving endlessly, and pretending things didn't hurt when they did. But the truth is, setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel, it makes you healthy. The biggest lesson I learned is that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify your worth or beg for decency from anyone, not even family. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. Once you stop explaining your choices to people committed to misunderstanding you, the world starts to feel lighter, freer, more honest. Looking back, walking away from that table was the best thing I ever did. It wasn't about revenge or proving them wrong, it was about reclaiming my self-respect. And when you stop letting toxic people define you, something beautiful happens. You start recognizing the quiet strength that's been there all along. Now, I wake up every day with no resentment, no guilt, no need to shrink myself to fit into someone else's expectations. Just clarity. And that, more than anything, is what real freedom feels like. So, what about you? Have you ever had to cut ties with someone who drained your peace, even if they were family? How did you find the courage to draw that line? Or maybe I'll ask it the Reddit way. AITA for finally choosing myself.